So when Bishop first asked me to be his secretary full-time, it wasn't totally unexpected, but it was, like, my immediate reaction was I didn't really want to do it. I was in Chack Bay. I loved Chack Bay. Good things were happening in Chack Bay, and I was sad and scared to see what would happen if I left, and I didn't want, I just didn't want to, like, stop the momentum there. But as I prayed about it, I didn't know why, but just like a very deep conviction that I had to say yes. I didn't say yes because Bishop wanted me to, although he did, and I didn't say yes just because of obedience, although, like, it was. But the deepest conviction was, like, God was asking me to do this. And in hindsight, I can see why. I didn't know at the moment, but it was a hard yes. Leaving Chack Bay was probably, at that time, one of the hardest things I had ever done. Just because I loved it there. It was my first time being an administrator, first time walking with a people for that long. I was there for about a year. And the thought came up, no more preaching, no more direction, spiritual direction, no more marriage preps, no more, like, all the things that I was, that I became a priest to do would stop, and I would doing emails and calendar and meetings and all the stuff that I didn't like. So my expectation was that I would be doing a lot of administrative stuff. My experience of working with Bishop Dorsonville was, all those things were there. The email and the calendar and the logistics and all that stuff was there. But the biggest thing that stands out to me from my time with him was that the job wasn't about all of that stuff. It was about just, like, the gift of accompanying him through all that he was experiencing. We didn't know any of the health stuff whenever I took the job, so what he was most intentional about was, like, forming a relationship with me, like, caring for me, really, like, being a father to me. Like, it was just so evident every single day that he cared. I wasn't like someone who did things for him, but was someone who was on the journey with him. And as the health things kind of came to the surface and we began to learn more, like, that journey just only deepened. Yeah, he was a father. I can't, like, that just encapsulates what working with him was like. And I never once doubted or questioned his love for me, his care for me, his concern for me. That was always first and foremost. So yeah, the experience of working with him, was beyond anything that I could have ever expected or imagined. And although when I first said yes, it was hard. Now, looking back, like, that's the biggest gift the Lord could have ever given to me. Yeah, me, Bishop, and Wanda were like a little trio. So every morning I'd go to his house, and if we didn't have Mass that day somewhere else, the three of us would always do Mass together in his chapel at his house. And every day I would walk in. Sometimes me or Wanda would get there first, but I would walk in. He was sitting in his chapel, rosary in hand, the Eucharist exposed on the altar, and he was praying every single day. He was in his chair in the chapel every time. He'd usually finish his whatever decade or rosary he was on, and then he'd repose the Blessed Sacrament. We'd do Mass together, which was just beautiful to, like, pray the Mass without just, like, the pressure of being in public and people and having to prepare, like, killer homily and, all these things. So it was just, like, a beautiful way to pray the Mass together. And that was how we started every day. Bishop was always a jokester, always poking fun at either me or Wanda, and the countless times we'd laugh together over lunch or dinner or breakfast or whatever it was. But it really did feel like a family. The three of us, like, we shared life together. I saw Bishop and Wanda more than I saw anybody else for those seasons. It really did feel like family. When I think about the way that Bishop ministered and, like, showed his own priesthood, he was always concerned for the lost sheep, so to speak. He obviously had a heart for the people who weren't in Mass, the young people, the young professionals, the young families who for whatever reason had drifted away. He always wanted to pursue them and do whatever he could to draw them back to the faith. What strikes me about him is also just, like, the beautiful and simple faith and love he had for Jesus. It was like Jesus is in the Eucharist and is here. Why wouldn't you come? He was just so convicted of the beauty of what the faith offered. And that was like, for him, the reason why people would come back. So it wasn't about analyzing problems or how do we do this best or how, we can get bogged down in the weeds a lot. But he was like very focused on the heart of the faith and drawing people to the heart of the faith. So I think of the Good Shepherd who goes out for the one, and like the inspiration to like never stop pursuing the one. And Bishop, I think, literally gave his life for the people of this diocese. Try as hard as I could to hold them back and to try to cancel things or postpone things because I was concerned about him doing too much. He wouldn't have it. He wanted to be out. He wanted to be with the people. He wanted to encounter people, to have conversations with them. Even when he would initially say, we're going to come in and out. We're not going to stay long. Once we got in, there was no pulling him out. Every person he talked to, it was like they were the only person in the room, and that's who he gave his full attention to. So there was just like a selfless and total giving of himself and of his heart to every person who he encountered. And it just shows, again, I think the heart of the Good Shepherd. So yeah, what inspires me and what I hope to imitate is just the total gift of self without holding anything back. Without worrying about my own needs, trusting that God would provide for those needs, to never stop going out for the lost who need the gospel. Bishop really believed that Jesus was the answer to everything, and that once people know Jesus, that was what would be the answer to everything in their lives. Yeah, I think God called him here for him to give him just like a real experience of fatherhood in his ministry, the real experience of like feeling at home with the people, and to experience love. He never stopped talking about how much he loved this place and how at home he felt here and how welcomed he felt here and how much people cared for him here. I know that he himself was grateful that God had called him here. And I think he gave us a beautiful witness of love that we should all strive to imitate. I think what's very clear to me is that few people in this world love like Bishop loved, with the joy, the smile, just like the total openness, the total just approachability that he had with people, and just imagining a world where we all have that same joy. We all are willing to listen to whoever comes before us. We're all willing to go out and seek out the people in our lives who we know need the Lord. There's like a missionary impulse that he had. And so I think it's less about like big organized programs and structures and all that stuff, but like for him, the faith, it was just like preach Jesus, love Jesus, and love the person in front of you. It's just like imagining a world we all actually did that and quit worrying about the whys and the problems and the best practices and all the ways to fix it. But like if I really give my heart to the Lord and I really give my heart to the person in front of me, and I'm willing to forgive and I'm willing to accept that it's going to be a mess, but we're going to get through it and God's going to provide. He just had a beautiful and docile trust that the Lord would take care of it if I just continue to give myself to him and to his people. So if each person lived like that missionary character and that giving of my heart to Jesus, just imagine what would happen. That's what impacted people about him was his witness, his testimony, his the experience of being loved by him. That's what changes hearts. It's not the best class or the best talk or it's the experience of being loved by somebody, and that's what I think he offered to us in a very unique way. The experience of being loved, really by Jesus through him, but that's what transforms, and that's how we're gonna let his legacy keep going on far beyond his passing. Some of my favorite masses that I served with him were those that he would do at the schools. Because those, every time it was question and answer, we're going in and around the kids. And I remember, especially at the high schools, he would always ask, raise your hand if you want to be a priest. And I was like, Bishop, no one's gonna, if they want to be a priest, they're not going to raise their hand because they're not going to put that on blast in front of all their friends at this point. And he'd always ask, if you want to be a priest, raise your hand. And one mass says, if you want to be a bishop, raise your hand. And one kid raised his hand, then probably a joke or whatever. And he's like, started taking his, here, it's yours, you can have it. But interacting with the youngsters, as he always called them, elementary school, high school, college, young professionals, that was something that was so close to his heart, and especially the school masses, could see him just come alive in a way that like I didn't see anywhere else. And even like, his energy would just come out of nowhere, and it would be like, everything was perfect. We did a mass at St. Bernadette School not long after we got home from the hospital the first time, and that was his first public event since he had been hospitalized, and it was like nothing ever happened, because he was so excited and so happy to be with those kids. That was what brought him to life. Something else that I think about is we went to the first theology on tap. I don't know how big it was going to be. We had the little room at the foundry, and very quickly realized we didn't have near enough food, near enough people, near enough staff to handle the people, near enough space for the people. It was huge, and I lost him because he was like, I feel like he literally went and talked to every single person who was there and wanted to know their name and what they did and where they were from and what their story was, and had even a lot of very beautiful conversations that had follow-up after that day, to go pray with somebody whose mom was sick and this person had this situation to pray for. And it wasn't just like, hey, how are you doing? But he talked to each person, which was just that encapsulates him. He wasn't just a formalities guy, but he was he really genuinely cared about each person and wanted to be involved in their lives. I think part of what made him fit in so well here, from he wanted to be in the mess of people's lives, to know them, to be part of their journey, to be part of their story, which just resonates so deeply with Cajun culture. I feel like everybody tells everybody everything, and he was so happy to just jump in the middle of that. So it was beautiful to see how he embodied that so well. Yeah, as I was processing my own grief in the immediate days following his passing, my heart was also just drawn to this, so many people who loved him dearly, both here and in Washington, but who, are just completely blindsided by the fact that he passed away, and not knowing anything and what happened and why. And it's earth-shattering news, especially to somebody who loved him very deeply, and if they didn't know what was going on. So as I was sitting with that, there was just some things that I communicated to some of his friends that I just wanted them to know as they were kind of working through it. One is that Bishop was never alone in anything. I was with him at every appointment, every visit, every hospital stay. Somebody was always there, and he knew that. And I think that was something that was very important to him, to not even want to go through anything alone. And the last hours, I didn't know what was going to happen. The way that everything played out was still not what I expected, but I just knew I couldn't leave. I had to be there. I had to have eyes on him, and he had to know that he wasn't alone. It was also what strikes me about him and his disposition in those days was just how at peace he was. What defined his life was Jesus and his love for Jesus, and he lived not for this world, but he lived for heaven. He hated all the appointments and the blood tests and the pricks and the procs and the doctors and all these things. Wasn't his favorite thing to go through all that, but what he never wavered in was just his conviction for the Lord's providence and his conviction for heaven. It's a beautiful blessing that Father PJ, who happened to be in town that weekend, was able to pray with him and anoint him and be with him the day before. At that point, we didn't know what the next day would hold, but you just see so many little stories like that of just God. In hindsight, you can just see how faithful the Lord was to him, personally, and to us and to me. He was a man who was just very at peace. One of his good friends told me you could say he was afraid of all the doctor stuff, but he wasn't afraid to die. He wasn't afraid to be with the Lord, and that conviction was very evident. I think there were, I don't know I know at least some of them were Catholic. Yeah. I don't know their level of practicing, but everybody without fail was just very touched and moved by him. The doctor who was in the ICU, he was his ICU doctor the day that he passed, actually called me yesterday. I don't even know how she got my number, but she texted me and called me, and just to check in, to share with how profoundly moved she was by him and by us. And I don't often call family members of people who pass, but I was just so profoundly impacted by you and by him, and I just immediately grew attached. And and you've been in my prayers, and I'm glad that y'all were able to anoint him. And like, it was just such, like, it was a genuine compassion and concern. And I do think that like his witness, and like just the witness of love that was evident about him, impacted every doctor, every nurse that could tell he wasn't just like a nameless patient to them. I don't even know if they knew he was a bishop or not, but like they cared about him and they gave everything for him, which is just something that was always evident the whole way through. And even like just notice like for them, just like the impact that his passing even had on that. They experience death all the time. She said, like, I do this all the time. I don't know why I'm crying right now, but like there's something about this one that's different. And so I think this is a testament to him and to who he is, and the love that he just exudes. He wanted this diocese to be a church that was missionary, that would go out, that would pursue, that would evangelize, that would proclaim the good news, and that was the only thing that mattered. So like it didn't matter all the other things that so often, you know, bog us down in the mess, but like that was the only thing that mattered to him, and he was ready to push forward, and he couldn't be stopped because that was the drive, because that was the call that God had placed on his heart. And so I think, yeah, that example, so yeah, he didn't practically do much. He hadn't had a chance to make any, you know, huge, you know, changes or new initiatives or anything, but the desire and the fire to like not get bogged down in the weeds and to like let the main thing be the main thing, and nothing's getting in the way of that. This is our mission, and that's what's going to focus us, not all the practical things or all, you know, all this stuff, but the mission is what defines us. I think for us, the first thing that immediately came to mind last night, like just the power of like, please God, our bishop interceding for us right now. And to not think of him as gone, but to think of his influence in our diocese is really just beginning. He has so much more to do. And death can't stop that.